Welcome everyone. This is the What's Cozy Like for Renters webinar, where we're looking at the renter side of things in Cozy Payments. Specifically, we'll look at the steps your renter goes through once you've invited them to start paying you through Cozy. After chatting with thousands of landlords, one of the biggest blind spots I've seen and heard about has been the experience in Cozy for renters getting set up for the first time. Now, I know that many of y'all started to set up rent collection but might not have finished up, or just haven't reached the point where you need to start collecting payments. Regardless of where you're at in the process, we're shedding light on the renter perspective to give landlords better visibility and help you feel more confident by understanding your renter's experience in Cozy so you can be a solid resource for them along the way. So here's our game plan. I do want to make sure we spend a majority of our time in Cozy, so we'll do a short intro, cover how to ask questions, then we'll go right into what setting up payments looks like for your renters. We're going to finish up with some live Q&A at the end so I can answer your questions as well, and I'll talk about how to send those in momentarily. As a note, we are going to be recording this, so you'll receive a link to view the recording just a little while after the webinar concludes. I'm your host, I'm Jordan, and as the Customer Success Manager here at Cozy, I help new landlords understand how Cozy works so they can see if it's the right fit for them. Once they get started, I make sure they have all the education and information they need to feel confident using Cozy to manage their rentals online, no matter what part of the process they're at. I'm based in Portland, Oregon, where Cozy is headquartered, and I've been a renter for a really long time, so questions and concerns on the landlord side of things as far as finding renters and screening them and how to collect rent payments, or even on the renter side of things, how to find a great place to live or submit screening reports, make your online rent payments. These are all things I've been a part of and things that I'm really happy to be with you all here this evening to talk about. Now, we encourage you to ask us all your questions here throughout the session, and I'll be monitoring those as well. So in your GoToWebinar control panel, there's a little question box. You can type your questions in there. I definitely want to hear all of your questions, but I do want to make sure we get through things. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a dedicated Q&A section for about the last 15 minutes or even longer if needed. I'm always happy to hang out and answer your questions. All right, so let's jump in here and start where things begin for your renter, the invitation to start making payments through Cozy. So here we are. We've finished adding all our rent collection info, due date and amount, move-in costs, our renters' email addresses, etc. Now though, that confirm an invite button is staring back at you, but what happens once you click it? Something I see often from landlords is that they'll create a tenant account to see what steps come next so they can answer their renter setup questions, which is another reason we designed this new webinar. So what will happen here when you click confirm an invite is Cozy will send an email invitation to your renter, giving them an overview of how we help make paying rent easier, but we'll also guide them through creating a Cozy account and setting up payments to you. So you can see on the slide to the right, that's the email that they're gonna get. So pretty straightforward there. I mean, 99% of the time, the whole process is seamless. Your renters see that email invite waiting for them in their inbox after it's sent out. They quickly create an account and get rolling with scheduling payments. Occasionally though, you might hear from renters that they haven't received the invite. So I wanted to give you some strategies for handling that. First, check their spam and trash folder. Because the invite is an auto notification, some email providers are a bit more aggressive there. So your renter should always double check their spam or trash folder first. So right off the top, give that a shot, all right? Maybe typo the email. I mean, double check, make sure there wasn't a typo when you put it in. It happens to the best of us. We've all had that gmail.com moment. Don't worry, easy fix though. In this little animated GIF to the right, you'll kind of see how to fix that up. So you'll just need to remove that renter from the rent collection and then re-add them in the tenant section with the correct email. Pretty easy peasy there. Next is you can also re-invite your renter. So on your renter's setup status, so when you're going into rent collection, you can check in on where they are and also resend the invite to them from your payments page. So again, I have a little animated GIF here kind of showing the process. So to do that, you would just log into Cozy, go to your payments page, you'll click on the rent collection you're kind of looking at here, and there's a tenants tab at the top. So you'll see their current setup progress. Maybe they still need to accept the invite or whatever it is. You could click resend invite, which will let you invite that tenant again, and will actually give you a unique link that you can send to them directly in an email. Now, If all else fails, you still do have some recourse, and that's they can just create an account with the email address you used to invite them, and they'll see the invite there waiting for them. So they check their spam and trash, wasn't there. Didn't typo the email. You tried re-inviting them. All else, just have them create an account with the email address you invited. They should be all good to go. Now, Cozy overall is very renter friendly, and most renters can set up payments without instructions. But I know that there are some groups of renters that have unique circumstances. Landlords, often aren't sure how to handle those setups. The renters aren't sure if Cozy is going to work for them. So I wanted to briefly touch on some of the most common groups and kind of talk about how to set those folks up. So first is roommates. We can definitely help with those renters. And there's actually a couple ways to do this. Easiest way, if you have multiple people paying rent for the same property, you can enter the total amount of rent in Cozy. Then each roommate will see the total rent amount, and they'll be able to claim their portion of the rent. So Cozy does allow partial payments, and that's to make it easy for roommates to pay rent, especially when you set things up like that. This is a really good setup when you're renting by the unit, because roommates can see when and how much each other have set up payments for, just so everyone can stay informed. Now, if you're renting by the room, or maybe you don't want roommates to know how much each other are paying, when you're adding your property to Cozy, you can set up a multi-unit property, and then you just create units for each person and request rent individually. So it's almost like you're setting up two completely different units for each one of those renters. And that way, like I said, if you're, have different rent amounts or just want to keep things separate, that makes it really easy to do that. But honestly, both options work really great in Cozy, and it's just really up to you what works best for your situation. Whatever it is, we can help with that. Now, another question I get is existing renters. And yes, you can totally set up existing renters in Cozy. If you do have an existing renter, yeah, you can still get started with rent collection. Your renters don't just have to be brand new ones. It can be any folks you're looking to move into Cozy, so you can collect online payments. So when you're setting up rent collection and you get to the lease date section, you'll just enter the start date in the past or whenever it started. And then later on, we'll ask you when you want to collect your first payment through Cozy. Non-monthly payments, super common scenario. So whether your renter is paying weekly, bi-weekly, or on another non-monthly interval, you can still set them up in Cozy. For example, if your renter is making 2 payments a month, they could schedule 1 payment per month using our recurring payment option or autopay, and then they can set up another one-time payment each month for their second payment. Alternatively, they could skip the recurring payment setup and set up a one-time payment each time they want to pay. Now, for landlords, the easiest way for you to set things up is to use our recurring monthly charges, but then just let your renters know that it's okay for them to pay on a different schedule. So, let's say your monthly rent is $1,000 and your renter is making 2 payments of $500 a month. At first, when they make their first $500 payment, it's going to look like they owe the other $500. But then when they make that payment, then your ledger gets all balanced out again. So that's really the easiest way to communicate it to your renters, so they don't really feel stressed out on how they're going to make those those biweekly payments. Another big one is Section 8 folks. So you can absolutely use Cozy to collect rent from tenants on the Section 8 program or a similar public assistance program like that. You can set up rent collection in Cozy for the full amount of rent, then just instruct the renter to pay their portion of the rent through Cozy. You can record any Section 8 funds or vouchers that you've received as an offline payment. You can also add a memo, so you can put in the Section 8 voucher or check number, and that'll update the balance on your payment ledger. So yeah, folks on Section 8, public assistance can totally set them up in Cozy. Now, non-tech savvy folks, I know since Cozy is all online, I know that it can be challenging for non-tech savvy people to get started using Cozy, especially because to use Cozy, a renter is going to need an active and accessible email address. Now, the whole point of Cozy is to make sure everything's online, and I know that there is that learning curve for some folks. And the reason that we do have it all online is because they do need an email address to create the account, log in, add a bank account, set up payments, and even receive notifications about any changes made. So without an email, honestly, it's going to be pretty tough to use Cozy. So hopefully they can quickly set up a Gmail account or something, or you can help them out with that. But once renters do get into Cozy, since it is pretty intuitive, they're usually able to get set up on their own pretty quickly. However, we did develop a pamphlet for renters that landlords can use to help introduce folks to Cozy, and it answers some common questions ahead of time, like what's Cozy, how does it work, is it secure? I've actually added this as a handout for y'all, which you should see in the handout section of your GoToWebinar control panel. So it is a PDF, so you can print it out, attach it to an email. We tried to group in a lot of the common questions that folks ask landlords when they're being introduced to Cozy. But I think most importantly, we're always around to help out if they have any questions along the way, or you have any questions as well. Now, lastly, along with being able to accommodate all kinds of renter setups like you just saw, so non-monthly payments, Section 8, things like that, Cozy also offers some great benefits for your renters as well, besides easy online payments. So in addition to being able to pay for free with their checking account and download a copy of their payment history whenever they need to, a key feature that a lot of your renters have probably missed out on is that they can opt into our free rent reporting service to help them build their credit history just by paying rent. Now, this is something that your renters need to enable on their end, but if they do choose to use rent reporting, we'll send their Cozy rent payment history, including past payments in Cozy, to Experian Rent Bureau, and they'll be added as a new trade line on their Experian credit report, which may be factored into their credit score. It's easy to turn on. Renters can do it right from the settings menu in their account. All right, so we kind of talked about some high-level stuff, strategies for setting things up, invites, how to introduce folks to Cozy. Now, though, let's get back to the renter's path here. So at this point, you've clicked confirm an invite. The invite is waiting in your renter's box. Now, though, let's dive in. Let's go through the process as though we're renters. So everyone, let's shift into renter mode. Let's put our tenant hats on. All right, everyone there? All right, okay, let's go. So let me go here and log in to Cozy, and we'll get into our renters. Let's see here. Let me log into my account here. All right, perfect. So we've logged into our account, and so we signed up for payment. Just I saw a few folks kind of join late here, so just a really quick recap. We've set up rent collection. We've added all of our info. We've invited our renters to Cozy. They got that email in their inbox. They clicked set up payments, and now here they are. From that email, set up payments, they'll quickly create a Cozy account if they haven't, and this is their shiny new payments page. So the first thing they're going to see is the invitation from you to set up payments with the address of their property, which you can see up here, and then the lease term you've entered in Cozy, so the lease dates, just so they can make sure things match up. So next step is we're just going to select set up payments. And what happens next on this next page is we'll just give folks an overview of the steps and what to expect. So they'll get a breakdown of their payments, renter's insurance is coming up. They'll see any shared documents here. You can upload documents to share with your renters. I just used the tenant handout just so y'all could kind of see what that looks like. But what happens next, so they look over everything. After clicking get started, your renters are going to see a breakdown of the bills you've added, beginning with the ones that are due soonest. So it makes it easy for them to kind of plan their payments. And with Cozy, you can have those moving costs due in advance. So you can see the term starts on December, but I wanted that security deposit and pet deposit due in advance. So we make it clear here so folks know that those are required ahead of time to make sure they can schedule their payments accordingly. All right, so this looks good. Let's go ahead and click next. What's going to happen first is they're going to be prompted to add a payment account if they haven't already. And there are a couple ways to do this. So renters can pay for free using their checking account and can add it one of two ways. So they can add their checking account here manually. They can use their account and routing numbers here if they wanted to use that method. And the way that works is we'll send 2 small deposits to their bank account, which can take a couple of days to show up. Once they do see those deposits, they'll log into Cozy to verify the amounts, and then we can start processing payments. Now, the other way to pay, and actually the quickest and probably most secure way, is to add and verify their account by using their online bank login. So let's say they're with Wells Fargo. We partner with major banks to make it easy for folks to use our online bank info to access their accounts and pick the one they'd like to link to Cozy. So all their information is anonymized and isn't stored in Cozy because frankly, we don't want it or need it for anything. but rather it's sent securely to their bank to verify their account, which will happen instantly. However, if they're not comfortable using their online bank login, or maybe they don't see their bank on that page because they're using a regional credit union or a smaller institution, they can still manually add it with their accounting routing numbers. In this case, though, I'm going to show you what the online banking option looks like here. So let me put in our test credentials. Nobody try and use these because they're not going to work on your end, just FYI. Okay. So send the credentials securely, encrypt it. We'll pick our account we want to connect to Cozy. Perfect. All right, and that's how quick that is when they use the online login option. Once they've added an account, we're going to walk them through scheduling their payments. That includes setting up their automatic monthly rent payments, which really is how Cozy works best. I will mention, though, that if they're not comfortable using auto pay, or maybe they're paying on a different cadence, like we talked about, like non-monthly payments, they can always manually set up payments each time they'd like to pay, which also works great for any other bills you need to add, like utilities or things like that. They can also select when they'd like to send their last rent payment in Cozy to coincide with the end of their lease term and ensure they don't accidentally send an extra one. So the reason I'm saying all this is a lot of landlords let me know that, hey, my renters are really concerned about auto pay and they don't want automatic payments, and do they have an option for something else? And the answer is yes. They can always set up a manual payment if they're not comfortable with auto pay. That's totally fine. All right, so let's see. We have our security deposit, $1,500 due on the 22nd. Let's do that. Pet deposit also due on the 22nd. We're good there. Let's do that. Monthly rent, let's say, I'm going to say I want to send this payment on the 1st, send it a little bit early. And then down here, this is where I was mentioning, they can choose when they want to send their last payment in Cozy. So as landlords, you'll be able to put the day of the month that it's due. So I set up the 1st. And when that's the case, they'll see all the 1st kind of through the end of the rent collection term to set things up accordingly. So I'm going to say my last payment is going to be March 1st. All right, so everything looks good here. We'll give them kind of a summary so they can go back and edit the payments if they need to. Everything like 25, 15, 500, perfect. Now on the next step here, now that they're all set up with payments, they'll finish up with renter's insurance. So the way this works is, as they're kind of going through the flow, they have that zip code that's associated with their property, and we'll give your renters a quote based on their zip code, and then a breakdown of what's included in their coverage. Now, the whole process we're walking through is a quick way, as you've seen, to just create a Cozy account, schedule their payments, get a shiny new renter's insurance policy all in one go, and really just in a few minutes. But, if they do have a renter's insurance policy or plan from another provider, like maybe they're an Allstate or they're going to get one from Farmers or whatever, totally fine. They can check this box here where they'll just add info about the policy, like the provider, policy number, liability, and personal property coverage. So I'm going to say that I'm going to continue without insurance for now. All right. So what happens next here, once they schedule their payments, they go to their rent payments here, which brings them back to their payments page or their ledger. They'll see all the info broken down. So they'll be completely looped in as to what's due, what payments they've scheduled. You'll see all these entries on your end as well, so you can stay on top of things. Now, whenever a renter schedules a payment, you'll see it show up on the ledger on your end. So if you want to confirm that a renter has indeed scheduled payments, your ledger is a spot to visit and verify that. So if someone's like, I scheduled payments 3 days ago, and you don't see anything on the ledger, it means that they didn't finish up that process, like no payments have been scheduled yet. If they do need to make changes to their rent payments, like changing the amount that's due or updating the account they use for payments, or even changing the day they send it, they can do that by clicking edit up here in the auto pay section. And this is really, we want to make sure folks are comfortable, authorizing the payments, they have the right amount, the right date, but things happen, life happens. We want to give folks the ability to make changes and updates as needed, and they can go in here at any time and make those changes. Now, earlier, you saw me how I just kind of skipped through the renter's insurance part. The reason for that was, though, if they still needed to add a renter's insurance policy, they could go back here to the renter's insurance tab at the top, and then they can add an existing policy. So here's where maybe they'll have the insurance provider number, policy number. On this step, they can also upload a policy document. I know that's what I had to do with my rental management company, so good place for them to be able to do that as well. So they don't have to feel scared if they didn't add a renter's insurance policy right away. I mean, if you require it as part of your lease, they're probably going to want to add that sooner rather than later. But they can always come back in here, go to the renter's insurance tab, make any updates, and add that information as needed. And there you have it. That was a trip through the renter's journey when they're getting set up in Cozy. As you saw, Cozy is really intuitive and a quick process, which actually is why the demo portion is pretty quick. But we're always there helping folks along, so they know exactly what to do and what's next. So that setup process is really quick and painless. As a renter, I've used a lot of rental platforms, and I can tell you it is not always quick and painless. Sometimes it is very slow and painful. I did not have that was not the case with Cozy when I used them for payments. So I think it's going to be helpful to a lot of your renters. I think sometimes they just kind of want to understand how things work. The pamphlet is helpful, and now y'all will have some more answers to answer some of those early questions as well.